everybody. Today's practice problem comes from Principles of Microeconomics by Dirk Mateer and Lee Kopic. We're going to be doing Chapter 4, Problem number 10. The problem reads, the cross-price elasticity of demand between American Eagle and Hollister is 2.0. What does that tell us about the relationship between these two stores? So the first thing that we have to do is we have to think about, well, what does cross-price elasticity of demand actually mean? So we had price elasticity of demand, which was just the percent change in quantity demanded of a good, divided by the percent change in price of that good. And now we have cross-price elasticity of demand. Let's write this out. So we got cross-price elasticity of demand. And what that is it's dealing with two goods rather than one. Though we still have a percent change in quantity demanded on the top and a percent change in price on the bottom, but now we're talking about two different goods. So the cross-price elasticity of demand is the percent change in quantity demanded of one good. Sometimes the goods are labeled A and B, but I'll say of one good, divided by the percent change in price of the other good. So it almost looks the same, except we never take the absolute value. So sometimes we take the absolute value with price elasticity of demand, not here. And rather than looking at these changes for the same good, we're looking at them for two different goods. So we're told here that this cross-price elasticity of demand between American Eagle and Hollister is 2.0. So what this means, there are two ways that this can be interpreted, and either one of them is okay, actually. That we could say that the percent change in the quantity demanded for American Eagle divided by the percent change in prices at Hollister is equal to 2.0. Or we could say that the percent change in quantity demanded at Hollister divided by the percent change in price at American Eagle equals 2.0. And these might not always literally be the same thing, but they're always going to move in the same direction. So regardless of how we interpret this statement, we're still going to get to the same answer. So this statement on the left here, what this is saying is that all else being equal, if prices at Hollister went up by 1%, there would be a 2.0% increase in the quantity demanded at American Eagle. Similarly, this statement here says if the prices at American Eagle were to go up by 1%, that the change in quantity demanded, or the sales or the unit sales at Hollister, all else being equal, would increase by 2%, right? So we can think about what this means in a more qualitative but a more helpful level. So what we're saying here, regardless of the magnitude of this number, we can see that this number is positive. So basically what we're saying is that when one of the companies increases its price, the demand for the other company's product increases. Or we could do this in the other direction, because we could notice that two negative numbers also gives us a positive number. And we could say this would also mean that when one of the companies decreases its price, the demand for the other company's product decreases. So we could see that because we're getting a positive ratio, the relationship must look like, if we have price up for one of the companies, just call it A, that we get an increase in the quantity demanded for company B. Or we could say, if we saw a price decrease at company A, that this would lead to a decrease in the quantity demanded, all else being equal, at company B. And sometimes we say here, rather than saying the quantity demanded increases or decreases, because what we're really saying, and if you remember back to our determinants of demand examples, is that we have an increase or decrease in price at one of the companies, and that shifts the demand at the other company. So we could also say here that an increase in price of company A is going to just take the whole demand curve of company B and move it to the right. Similarly, a price decrease at company A is just going to take the whole demand curve of company B and move it to the left. So this looks a lot like what we were talking about when we talked about prices of related goods as a determinant of demand. Remember, related goods were substitutes and complements. We said substitutes were things that you consumed one instead of the other, and complements were things that you consumed together. And they had particular relationships. When we had substitutes, an increase in the price of one of them led to an increase in demand for the other. And a decrease in the price of one of them led to a decrease in the price of and the demand for the other one. Complements, on the other hand, we said worked in the opposite direction. That when we had an increase in the price of one good, we had a decrease in demand for its complements. And when we had a decrease in price of one good, we had an increase in demand of its complement. So we can infer, taking these different steps, just knowing that this cross-price elasticity is positive, it actually didn't matter that it was 2. We could say that we can infer that these goods must be substitutes, which makes sense because based on what we know about the world, Hollister and American Eagle are in fact substitutes, certainly more so than complements. We can also infer, 2, it's a pretty big number, bigger than 0.05, bigger than 1, etc. So we can say that they're actually pretty strong substitutes as well. But nonetheless, what we're learning here is that you can use the sign on cross-price elasticity of demand to determine whether 2 goods are substitutes or complements. If 2 goods have a positive cross-price elasticity of demand, they're substitutes. And if they have a negative cross-price elasticity of demand, then they're complements.